UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
It's that time, folks. Let's get it on. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours packed full of news, views and dynamic debate. Get involved. Have your say. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000. It's Wednesday, March the 26th. Here's what's coming up. It was Rachel from Accounts' spring statement today, or as some seasoned commentators are calling this litany of low growth and broken pledges, the Chancellor's resignation letter. The headline is that with her £40 billion tax grab budget from hell last October, Robert Reeves killed the economy stone dead and it's not recovering. This scarcely competent socialist can't keep promising us jam tomorrow, and she can't keep blaming Donald Trump for her own disastrous failings. The Office of Budget Responsibility has halved its growth forecast to a feeble 1% and predicts financial stagnation for us all until at least next year. Meanwhile, she's been forced to make yet more cuts in welfare spending after Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall bottled it last week with only £3.4 billion worth of savings when at least £5 billion was urgently required. A new poll reveals that long-suffering Brits simply don't trust Reeves anymore, nor do they believe a word she says? Do you? 0344 499 1000. In other news, a Pakistani paedophile who attacked an underage girl after serving a jail sentence has avoided deportation after an idiot immigration judge decided that sending him home would infringe his human rights. He is an alcoholic, you see, and in Muslim Pakistan, where alcohol is illegal, he wouldn't be able to get treatment for his booze problem, and they wouldn't think very nicely of him. So this immigration judge said, stick around, Mr. Paedophile, you're free to stay. All together now, who the hell cares about his booze problem? Who the hell cares about his human rights? He's a paedophile. He's been sent to jail. As soon as he was let out of jail, he went and attacked an underage girl and sexually assaulted her. That's the kind of guy we're talking about. A tribunal judge has decided he can stay. I don't give a damn about his rights. Send him home, for God's sake. What is wrong with these moronic judges? 0344 499 1000. Plus, Crazy Ed Miliband's net zero war on fish and chips. A third of Britain's chippies face closure thanks to this deranged climate change maniac's cruel zealotry. 0344 499 1000. And welcome to North Korea, as enforcement officers policing Labour's ludicrous Workers' Rights Act will be given sinister powers of arrest and to enter people's homes to seize computers, documents and the like. So not being a caring, sharing boss will become a criminal offence. Isn't that special? 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, Just Stop Hoyle, the big spending speaker they call Long Haul Hoyle, has spoken out and delivered his reasons for spaffing £250,000 on glamorous global travel in just 2 years of jet setting at sky-high cost to us, the taxpayers. I don't know about you, but I'm not buying Sir Lindsay's excuses. Stand by for his jaw-dropping story. 0344 499 1000. Plus, the water worker who was sacked for condemning Hamas. The astonishing new theory about Egypt's mysterious pyramids. Were they just the pinnacles of enormous structures plunging down deep beneath the desert? Were they giant trapdoors to underground cities built 2,500 years before the birth of Christ? Amazing. And finally, Kinsey Schofield with all the latest Harry and Meghan news. Who wants to be a billionaire? The difficult Duchess does, and Harry quits his favourite charity amid allegations of racism and misogyny. Never a dull moment with the gruesome twosome, unless that is, of course, you tune in to Netflix's Dud Ballfest with Love Meghan. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere, stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday night together. For the first hour, I'm going to be joined, as always, by Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. But for the first 20 minutes or so, I'm very pleased also to welcome to the show to discuss this rubbish spring statement today, the Shadow Secretary for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, Kevin Hollinrake. Thanks for joining us, Kevin.
Good evening, Kevin.
Your initial thoughts. I mean, she sought to blame Donald Trump. When she did that last week, she was actually slapped down by Keir Starmer in number 10, but she hasn't dropped the ball on that yet. She slyly added more cuts to the welfare bill. So I think Labour have played us a kind of three-card trick here, because Liz Kendall didn't cut the welfare bill sufficiently, the benefits bill sufficiently last week. We needed at least $5 billion. She bottled it, just came up with $3.5 billion. So slyly today, Rachel added in another 500 million of cuts. So more of that. And just generally a depressing summary of her lack of achievement so far. I mean, as I said in my monologue, Kevin, let's face it, I mean, she just killed the economy stone dead with that budget back in October, didn't she?
Yes, she did. And even before that, if you look back to July last year, when Labour came into power, the confidence reading from the Institute of Directors was +5. Today it is -65. That's the level it was during COVID. And if you, again, July last year, the UK economy was growing faster than any other G7 nation. Today it's the slowest growing nation in the G7, and that's because she taught the economy down, and which really destroyed confidence amongst businesses who really drive the economy forward for 6 months. Then hit business with £25 billion a year tax rises, which she said she wouldn't do, and then she did, plus lots of oil taxes and borrowing. And down the track, and they don't come into effect, of course, till next week. And but then also you've got this huge amount of red tape and this massive deterrent to employ anybody, which is in the shape of the Employment Rights Bill, which businesses, particularly SMEs, are panic-stricken about. And all this stuff, of course, deters investment by businesses, and businesses drive growth, not governments. So that's what's happened. You can't point the finger anywhere else. She's got to look much closer to home, and it's her own actions, her own choices that have actually driven the economy backwards.
Well, I'll give her one thing. She's managed an amazing achievement. I find myself agreeing with Jeremy Corbyn, who ripped into her in some style last night. Good for old Jezza. But of course, Kevin, you know, it's your fault. It's the Tories' fault. You left them with such a mess, such a massive £22 billion black hole in the finances. Oh, God, if I hear that one more time. But have a look at this. Here she is blaming you, of course.
The budget last October was a once-in-a-generation budget. It was needed to wipe the slate clean after 14 years of economic mismanagement, and specifically the failure of the previous government to have done a spending review for so many years. And so we did have to make a number of difficult decisions on tax and welfare and on spending in the budget last year. But we have now wiped the slate clean. We'll never have to do a budget like that again. There's lots of speculation that I was going to change taxes today. The Tories were desperate.
Well, Kevin, I'll get your view on that in just a second. Let's bring Isabel in. Isabel, a poll today revealed that the public, thank God for them, are sick to death of this narrative, this cliche, this hackneyed, constant repetition of they left us with a £22 billion black hole in the finances. They're not believing it. because everything she promised us before becoming elected, she's gone back on. This government has just steered us into a complete economic mess, and the public are tired of it. They're tired of the rhetoric, they're tired of the cliches, and they're not trusting her anymore. They don't trust a word she says, according to a new poll out today.
Well, I think there's another thing that voters are going to get increasingly fed up of hearing, and that is this government blaming global instability, the changes in the international situation, in brackets. What they really mean is Donald Trump, that they can't stand. You know, the excuse is a very thin one, really, because the fundamental problems facing our economy are not caused by President Putin's appalling invasion of Ukraine, nor by the election of the new US president. They are problems that were basically took root in the UK, I'm afraid, under the Conservatives. It's true, but you can't go on and on blaming the Conservatives when you've been in office 9 months and have only made many of the key things that are so much of a drag on our economy even worse.
Well, indeed, your thoughts on the fact this Labour government constantly blaming you. I mean, you must be thankful for Donald Trump, because now and again, Rachel breaks off from blaming you and blames Donald Trump. It's everyone's fault except for hers, isn't it?
Pathetic, actually, because, I mean, everything that Rachel Reeves just talked about then, she knew before the election. She promised all those promises. No, everything was fully costed, fully funded. There was no tax raising needed. There was no mention of things like winter fuel allowance or things like the family farm tax. Those other measures they brought in. Council taxes are going to be frozen. All those promises. She can't hide away from the fact they made those promises. They said everything would be fine. Trust us with the economy. They've completely obliterated any confidence in the business world, especially amongst SMEs. And I've got to say, there's some other challenges ahead too. So it's simply wrong. And I'm sorry, Rachel Reeves, she's out of her depth. She's just not at the caliber you need to be able to run this economy right now. I'm not saying there aren't challenges, and we had many challenges to face during the time we were in office, and we had many successes. So of course you can say, we made mistakes. Of course we did. I'm not saying we didn't deserve to lose last election, but the country does not deserve this. They've taken a wrecking ball to the economy, and you still, as I say, got Angela Rayner's crazy new rules on employment, which will make it very, very difficult, and there's a massive deterrent into any SME, particularly in hiring anybody for the first time, because it really will be very, very difficult in terms of the new rules that are coming down the track from that.
Exactly right. And in terms of our welfare bill, as I say, Liz Kendall, no ifs, no buts, absolutely bottled it last week. Now, Rachel from Accounts has tried to slip in a few more cuts here, but it's still nowhere near enough. I mean, we need a full frontal assault on our benefits system, which is out of control. I mean, only last week, just around the edges, we learnt this absurd thing that 1 in 5 all new cars in this country are basically bought by the government to give to people on disability benefits. So given that they haven't attacked the welfare bill, the spiralling welfare bill, nearly enough, are you in any doubt, Kevin, because I'm not, that by September she's going to have to bring in more tax rises?
Well, exactly what she's going to do. I mean, you're right to say about the welfare bill, and we did act upon this, but we were too late. We should have acted on it sooner. But we had a plan to save £12 billion from the welfare bill over this Parliament a year. And what have they promised to do? Initially over $3 billion, now supposedly £4.5 billion. It's not enough. You cannot have a situation where you want a productive economy where 1 in 4 people of working age are not working. That's just simply not possible. So yes, of course you need welfare reform, but I do not believe that the Labour government will properly tackle this. It's hugely divisive on the backbenches. They'd be hugely divisive in terms of the other measures they're going to take, such as trying to thin out the civil service, which the unions are already pushing back on, and the unions who fund the Labour Party. And I think the Cabinet itself in the last Parliament received about £500,000 in donations directly to those cabinet ministers. So to think they're going to have this big fight with the unions over this is for the birds. They're going to find it very difficult to walk the talk on productivity, efficiency, and welfare reform.
I'll tell you what, Kevin, I had my reservations about how the Tories behaved in the last few years, but compared to this lot, come back into power, all is forgiven. I tell you, this is an absolute disaster. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Kevin Hollinrate, the Shadow Levelling Up Secretary and the Secretary for Housing and Communities. I'll come back to Isabel in a little while. We'll have a quick chat about today's events, the spring statement, and we've got some other very important stories to discuss as well, so stick around.
Immigration and all the issues flowing from the number of immigrants coming to the country, legal or otherwise, is at the root of all our problems at the moment. And if Labour aren't going to get a grip of this, they will see housing issues increase, cost of living increase, transport, schooling, whatever it is, all of those problems will multiply because we cannot cope with the number of people coming into this country and the UK paying for them. So I'm afraid Labour haven't got a grip on this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's brilliant international editor. Before we move on, Isabel, to another one of these egregious cases where the immigration courts have allowed a really dangerous paedophile to stay here, because he might be persecuted if he goes home. Also, brilliantly this time, he's an alcoholic and he won't be able to get the treatment he needs for his booze problem in a country where they don't have alcohol because it's illegal. So another brilliant decision. But just a few more reflections from you, if you don't mind, on today's spring statement. It is falling apart at the seams for this woman. The Office of Budget Responsibility has reduced its forecasts for growth to 1%, which is pretty feeble. It has also predicted that every person in Britain will face financial stagnation until at least 2026. There'll be no growth whatsoever for us personally. And by the way, the OBS also says that the only reason we've even got minor growth is because we've been letting 900,000 migrants in to slightly bolster the economy. The more people you have in a country spending even small amounts of money, the more you'll get a slight rise. It's not a solution in the long term. But anyway, so they've reduced their prediction to less than 1%, and said that we will none of us will get any richer for at least another year. And a new poll by the More in Common company reveals that 53% of the population now believe that Labour lied about its economic plans in order to get into power. And they also believe that Keir's crew always knew that they were not going to keep their promises. 70% aren't buying Labour's constant blaming of the Tories for the current mess, and people are sick and tired of the Gormless government's £22 million financial black hole narrative. The game's up for this woman, isn't it?
Well, I'd like it to be up, and I'd like it to be up right away. I don't think it's up quite yet, unfortunately. I think you and I have talked about this before. I've talked about it on other talk shows. I think that the Prime Minister will probably give her a few more quarters until the UK actually does go into recession. If that happened, then I think her job is in more trouble. But as far as the public are concerned, I think the game was up a long time ago in their view of Rachel Reeves. And the reality is that we are so far down the abyss as a country that only truly radical measures can actually save us, can actually put the economy back on track and turn us into a country that can imagine maybe growing at 3%, 4%, something exciting, forget trying to thrill the voter with the prospect of 1 point something in the dim and distant future. No, the UK needs to do a great deal better than that. And it simply isn't possible when you've got a government that continues to squander money in the way that it does and continues to make it so difficult to employ people or to run small businesses. I didn't agree with everything that Kevin Hoyenrake said, and I certainly didn't agree with you when you said, come back, all is forgiven.
Well, it's just a kind of turn of phrase,
Yeah, I haven't forgiven
I'll have the Tories over this lot, if you know what I mean. That's all I meant.
Yeah, I think many of our listeners would prefer none of the above.
Yeah, well, OK. Point taken.
But basically, we need radical measures. And this, you're absolutely right to focus to home in on this welfare bill. And let's just be really plain about what we're talking about here. When they talk about welfare cuts, what they're really talking about is the bill not rising at quite such a catastrophic rate as it was going to. It's a bit like inflation. Money is still, the cost of everything is still going up. It's just not going up quite such a fast rate. We're still talking about an extra 29 billion on the cost of the welfare state over the next few years. We are going down the pan, and we're going down the pan really fast, and no amount of gaslighting from this Chancellor can change that. People feel it, they see it. I don't know anyone on any income bracket who currently feels better off.
Well, socialists and the Labour Party, or Labour governments, always believe in the magic money tree. And what they don't want to do constitutionally is, like, emotionally, they hate to cut benefits. They hate to cut welfare. That's what they like to do. They like to take money from people like you and me, hard-working taxpayers, and give it to people who don't work, and then give pay rises to, sort of £100,000 a year train drivers and things. That's what they like to do. So they constitutionally, they viscerally detest the idea of cutting welfare, partly because Jeremy Corbyn and the gang will come in and criticise them, but partly because they just genuinely don't want to do it. But the problem is, if they don't do it, our economy is absolutely screwed, and Rachel will have no choice but to give us some pretty big tax hikes come September. So she is between a rock and a hard place, which she's got Keir Starmer saying we need to make cuts. She's got the Corbynistas saying, how could you, you heartless woman? So she is in a socialist quandary.
Well, the job of being Chancellor isn't about being popular. It's about actually making your country prosperous and as many people as possible feel better off. And she's doing woefully at that. The other thing that the Labour Party and any Labour government hates to do is sack anyone, however incompetent they are, whether it's the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, or indeed tens of thousands of civil servants. So I'm not holding my breath with this plan to axe a load of civil service job. I simply don't believe they will ever actually do it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's all words, all weasel words. And what you can put your bet your house on is by September, more tax rises. And that is going to go down like a cup of cold sick, I'll tell you. Listen, let's move on. We've got another one of these hopeless situations with an immigration tribunal, an idiot judge. This one really takes the biscuit. This is an alcoholic Pakistani paedophile who served a jail sentence, you know, for sexually abusing children, came straight out and attacked an underage teenage girl, having finished his sentence. So the Home Office, bless its little heart, earmarked this guy for deportation. He appealed, citing the European Convention on Human Rights, and the judge overturned the deportation order because he was an alcoholic, and if he went back to Pakistan, where alcohol is illegal, people would look down on him and allegedly treat him badly, and B, and this is the one that certainly tugged at my heartstrings, he wouldn't be able to get treatment for his booze problem. So this guy now stays within us, is in our midst, a danger to our children, because the judge decided he needed booze treatment and might be treated quite badly under the terms of the European Convention on Human Rights. This nonsense has got to stop, hasn't it?
Well, how about C, back where he came from, it might be an awful lot more difficult, or let me put that differently, it would be an awful lot more difficult for him to actually obtain alcohol. So, in fact, to cure his alcoholism, how about sending him to a place where alcoholism is not acceptable and booze isn't readily available? Sounds like the best cure to me.
Have you been to Pakistan? Like most Muslim countries, it's fairly easy to get booze if you want to, so I don't think...
Well, in that case, his excuse, you can't have it always. I mean, his excuse doesn't apply in that case. Either it's really difficult to get alcohol and it's really frowned upon, in that case, well, then poor him, you know, we don't accept that as an excuse. Or it isn't, and in that case, it's not so frowned upon to be drinking.
It's just ridiculous, though, isn't it? You know, this is the ECHR. It's not just the European Convention on Human Rights. It is a combination of that convention and these ludicrous Guardian-reading judges who just want to find against the government every time, and some or other want to be nice to paedophiles and criminals, drug dealers and the like, and let them stay because, you know, hey, one of their sons doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets. This is out of control now, this nonsense, isn't it?
Beyond out of control. I mean, we had fairly recently the case of the woman who joined a terror organisation, a proscribed group in Nigeria, simply so that she couldn't be deported to Nigeria, because then she would be in trouble because she's...
I remember that one, yeah.
Every week, I mean, more than once a week, there are these cases, and I can't remember it ever having been this bad, but maybe it's just that we're now, quite rightly as the media, highlighting these cases. As you say, it's the judges. You know, they do not need to interpret the law in this way. That
no,
is
they don't. They don't. It's there in... Look, the ECHR, we should leave it. But even if we did, these judges would find a way to let these paedophiles and the criminals and drug dealers stay, because that is their natural inclination. They'll always do it. So the real problem we have, yes, leave the ECHR, then we've got to deal with these judges, because they are a clear and present danger to public safety here in Britain.
I mean, the UK is becoming a global dustbin. That's what it is. It seems that we are now just a kind of place of refuge for a bunch of people who are actually so dreadful that they can't even rely on being treated properly back in their countries of origin because they've done such terrible things here. And that
That's right.
that is no longer a disqualification for being part of British society. And the taxpayer is being asked each and every time not only to support these people in their endless appeals, which after you try 8 or 9 times, and I haven't even made that up, there are people who they're earmarked for deportation because they are convicted criminals, and they bring 7, 8, 9 attempts to appeal, all on different and ever more creative grounds, all supported by the British taxpayer through our court system. I mean, this is absolutely insane, and it is totally self-harming, and it is an insult to ordinary, hard-working, good citizens of our country, the British people, who time and again this government claims to be on the side of those people. Well, they're not, because the systems that are in place simply seem to be set up to allow anyone to stay, however awful, however non-contributing they are, whatever their violent criminal history. Come one, come all to merry Britain.
That's something we need to do as a matter of urgency. Limit the number of appeals these people are allowed to make. Exactly, because at the moment it's limitless, it's infinite. Legal judgments, Isabel, are rendered pointless if there is limitless recourse to appeal. So you just go, oh God, this one went against us. Appeal. Oh, this one went against it. Appeal. Oh, we lost this one again. Appeal. Yeah, we won this one. They just keep doing it until they win. And in the end, they do. It's mad. And I got one other question to ask you, sort of journalistic question. If I was an editor of a national newspaper, only a matter of time, of course, I would get together with some of my fellow editors and I would launch a case. I would appeal and say, why is it that this Pakistani paedophile, who's been through our legal system, and all these other people, these deportees who managed to stay or get kicked out, why do we grant them the privilege of anonymity? Why do we do that? I mean, that's a privilege that you only give to very special cases. And our system, our legal system, is supposed to be transparent. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Why on earth are we not naming this Pakistani paedophile?
I don't know, has he got children or something? I mean, I've got no...
We're never allowed to name them. We're never allowed... We never get their names, and I don't understand why.
No, I totally agree with you. I can't see any case whatsoever to protect the identity of any convicted criminals unless there is a child protection issue linked to that. I can't see the justification for it. As you say, it's a privilege to have your anonymity protected in any criminal proceedings in which you are either the accused or the convicted one. And you're right, we just shouldn't tolerate it.
We should know who these people are. We should know who they are. I mean, only in very, very exceptional cases do people who go through the legal system get anonymity. And Pakistani paedophiles who rape children, I would suggest maybe we shouldn't afford them that privilege. I don't know. Call me controversial. Right, let's go to break, Isabel. When we come back, it's net zero kills the chippy. Ed Miliband, Crazy Ed, has declared war on British fish and chips. That's good, isn't it? So that next. Stay tuned, folks.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Julia Hartley-Burr, Speaker of the House of Common Sense, who doesn't go around the world spending £250,000 worth of your money, taxpayers' money, on glamorous foreign travel, unlike the Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle. We'll be dealing with him in just a little while. But first, back to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. So old crazy Ed Miliband, first of all, he's making life very, very difficult for fish and chip shops because of the soaring prices of fish, batter, fat, wrapping paper, and mainly energy, which of course is Ed's area. But more to the point, he's also demanding that fish and chip shop owners use electricity because it's more, eco-friendly than gas. But they're all saying, well, look, you just can't make effective, good fish and chips with electricity. It's the wrong kind of power. You need the flame of the gas. So if they're forced to do this, everybody will get soggy fish and chips, and nobody wants that. But amid this kind of onslaught, more of Crazy Ed's net zero zealotry, at least a third of British chippies are facing imminent closure. This guy Miliband, Isabel, is so consumed by his own zealotry that he believes any price is worth paying. So if a third of chippies go out of business, if we lose traditional fish and chips, he'll say, oh, yes, but we saved the planet. And on it goes. He thinks that net zero, his mad mission to net zero, which will never happen, because he's going to get sacked fairly soon anyway, is more important than anything else. People's livelihoods, people's jobs, people's happiness, people's wealth, people's comfort, everything. So now he's got good old British fish and chips in his sights, and what a sad thing.
Oh, well, he won't be forgiven by voters if they lose that, will he? I mean, there's some things that go to the heart of who we are, and the ability to have a good fish supper is definitely one of those things. This level of meddling is just ridiculous. No government, no energy secretary should be interfering on this level. And everybody needs affordable energy, whether it's gas or electricity or whatever works for them. And it comes back round to the same thing. We have these resources. We're just choosing not to use them out of some ludicrous, totally misguided, self-flagellating quest for a net zero, which, if we hit that target tomorrow, would make the absolute grand total of net zero difference to the global temperature. That's what net zero actually comes down to, net zero difference to climate change if Britain achieved it tomorrow. It's actually a tragedy, isn't it? Because people are paying such a high price for this. And I think for many years, they just didn't realise, because everybody wants to have a nicer planet. Everybody wants to save tigers and polar bears, and but that's conservation. That's about conserving our environment. Nobody wants to see deforestation, and that may well be linked to contributing to climate change in some way. But we've got to be proportionate about how we address this, and secondly, realistic about our ability to make any difference at all in Britain when you've got other countries that are ignoring it and just kind of powering on.
Indeed. Kemi Badenoch was on Mike Graham's show yesterday, and she suggested that the Tories might open the door. I love the way she called it, to the return of fracking. When did it start? We didn't ever allow it to start. Old Rishi Sunak was busy agreeing with those placard-carrying grannies up in Lancashire who said, if we start fracking, then there'll be an earthquake in Blackpool. No, there won't, you silly old women. But Badenoch is beginning to show signs that she may, even though she's trapped in the Westminster bubble, terrible place to be stuck, it cuts you off from the rest of humanity, she's beginning to realise what Reform already have realised, that if you say to the British public, do you know what, we're just going to get rid of all this net zero claptrap and stop charging you the highest energy bills in the entire world. Your energy bills are going to plummet because we're going to start fracking and we're going to start running power stations sensibly and get back to basics. If Kemi is showing signs that of realising that if they could actually get round to saying that, they might get a lot of votes. These politicians, it's weird, isn't it? That they just can't quite bring themselves to say this green claptrap, everyone's had enough of it, even though everyone's had enough of it.
Well, I think just focusing in on the fracking thing, I mean, the fracking industry would not now trust anything that the Tories said on this. You know, they were led up the garden path by too many Conservative politicians making noises about supporting fracking and never actually following through on it. And the industry spent an awful lot of money exploring the potential for this, and over the years just had no real support from the Tory government, running scared, as you say, of ludicrous saber rattling about earthquakes. I mean, come on, you know, the average lorry trundling past a front door is going to make more of a daily nuisance than anything that's going to come from a bit of fracking. People are they're just beginning now to really see this for what it is. And I don't think the Conservatives have a leg to stand on here. They spent so long worshipping at this altar themselves. You know, it's something that the entire new Conservative brand was based on this. If you remember back to David Cameron trying to rehabilitate the Conservatives when they were in opposition by embracing all the greenery stuff. So it's very, very difficult for them to be credible on this, I think.
Totally right. And I mean, if she wants to gain some momentum, just have the courage of your convictions. Say, I tell you what, we're going to copy Reform UK. We're just going to abandon all of it. I would vote for any party that completely abandons net zero, because I know it's going to save me fortunes, and no one has convinced me that all this claptrap that Ed Miliband imposes on us and other people like Miliband around the world has done any good whatsoever. It's just making life much more expensive and making us all much colder. It is, I think, just a load of crap that we should get rid of, and that's my statesman-like declaration on this issue. Now, let's go to a break now, and when we come back I want to talk about something that is very sinister. I think you'll agree. It's to do with Angela Rayner's ludicrous Workers' Rights Act. We'll talk about that after these messages.
Immigration and all the issues flowing from the number of immigrants coming to the country, legal or otherwise, is at the root of all our problems at the moment. And if Labour aren't going to get a grip of this, they will see housing issues increase, cost of living increase, transport, schooling, whatever it is, all of those problems will multiply because we cannot cope with the number of people coming into this country and the UK paying for them. So I'm afraid Labour haven't got a grip on this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Lindsay Hoyle's latest shenanigans after the 8 o'clock news. But first, I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. You'll like this one, Isabel, or rather you won't. This is Angela Rayner's ludicrous workers' rights bill shortly to become law. This is typical socialism, typical Labour. They never understand where the boundaries are, where individuals should be left alone. They think that the power of the state should be limitless. Listen to this. So under this new act, this is, of course, is the brilliant act where at one point it contained the clause that no employer, company owner or boss would be able to phone or email or contact or text their staff after 6 p.m. This was shortly before it was explained to those Labourites, Ange and the gang, that actually the world doesn't work like that. You know, there are all sorts of jobs where people have to talk to their bosses. Horror of horror after 6 p.m. Try being a journalist. I'm sorry, news editor. It's 6:05. You can't call me now. Try that, all you young journalists, or rather don't. But anyway, they're to get rid of that rather extreme clause, by the way. But it is still a very extreme act that makes life very difficult for companies, for bosses. Now, this, though, is awful. Enforcement officers for this law, for the Workers' Rights Act, will be given powers of arrest so they can arrest people. But worse than that, they'll be given powers to force themselves into people's homes, to actually, like the police, to burst into people's homes and search them for documents, laptops, computers, that sort of thing, to see, amid their investigations, to see whether or not these bosses, these company owners or whatever, have been obeying the terms of the Workers' Rights Act. So basically, what this lot want to do is, if you're not a lovely, caring, sharing boss who gives their workers everything they want, you know, work from home, 3-day weeks, £5 million a year kind of thing. If you don't do that, that's going to be against the law. But the idea that essentially non-coppers, officials, enforcement officials for this act can burst into people's homes, arrest them, take their laptops. I mean, that's something out of North Korea, isn't it?
Well, there's an awful lot about Britain that seems like something out of North Korea at the moment. And, you know, it cast back a few years. If you sort of said this could happen to me, I'd have said, no way, you know, that'll never happen. This is ridiculous. You know, someone's exaggerating here. But I 100% believe it would happen. You know, we've already seen unbelievable infringements of people's liberties to say what they think. You know, I know you're talking later on the show about the poor fellow who was sacked as a result of condemning a terror organisation, Hamas, because that was insufficiently inclusive, apparently. You know, the whole cult of inclusivity now means we need to be inclusive of actual murderers, apparently. So I can well believe that, given an inch, these awful enforcement officials, whoever they're going to be, will absolutely relish their little moment of power to burst into someone's home and try and grab a few scrappy bits of paper that might give them some evidence against a boss. What is the effect of this? The effect of this is multifold, isn't it? But in one case, it will be that people will just be a lot more reluctant to hire, to take new people on. I think it's going to have a very, very chilling effect on recruitment. I think bosses will become an awful lot more discerning about who they take on. They'll become much more risk averse. It may end up being much more of a case of taking on people that, have had a personal recommendation. Who do you know? Because who wants to take a risk on a total stranger under these circumstances? And also, I think it sets up a really artificial us and them situation between workers and employers. I mean, hopefully, most workers aspire one day to also be part of the managerial group in a company or become bosses themselves. But this sets up barriers between those who are in those positions of power and those subordinate to them, and creates a kind of fear culture. And it's the last thing that is going to create a booming economy. It just isn't.
Yeah, so this is Angela Rayner's baby. This is her pet project, this workers' rights bill. In fairness to Starmer and the gang, they have been watering it down almost daily, because when it started out in life, it was just extraordinary. As I say, your bosses can't talk to their staff after 6 p.m. Bosses can have no say in whether or not workers demand to work from home. If they ask for it, they have to be given it, and that people could be hired and then sue the bosses for wrongful dismissal almost instantly. 1 day later, they could sue for wrongful dismissal. I don't know if the guy turned up, or if they didn't turn up for work, or they were obviously drunk or something like that, they can immediately sue the boss. So in other words, it is completely skewed against the bosses, against company owners. And once again, this will hit small companies more than big companies. But I think it feeds into what people like Angela Rayner, their worldview. Now, the fact of the matter is, I hate to break it to members of the Labour Party, members of the Labour government, but you will find that most people who own companies, most bosses, department heads, are actually decent people. And most of them operate with their staff on a decent human level. People like Angela Rayner can't understand that. They only see bosses in terms of Victorian robber barons who are evilly exploiting their poor, long-suffering workers. That's the way they see it. So we've got here a kind of ridiculous act, an anachronistic act, sort of based on a Victorian view of what factory exploiting bosses were like. It isn't commensurate with the modern world, and it is pernicious, and it is bad for business. Once again, this government is so bad for business. Add that to the national insurance hike and all the other terrible measures that are making it so difficult to make a living in this country right now. Labour are just catastrophic for business, aren't they?
Well, here's another point, and I actually, of course, I completely agree with you that the vast majority of employers are good, decent people who treat workers well, because that's how you get the best out of workers. But equally, it isn't good for workers to feel that they have absolutely no risk whatsoever of being fired or ever being hauled up or criticised or challenged in any way whatsoever over substandard work. That doesn't produce the best outcome for a company, and therefore for the economy either. There has to be a bit of tension there. As an employee, you have to have a bit of fear that this may not last forever, and that you're going to have to stay on your toes and perform well. And one of the byproducts of a bill like this is it gives workers so much protection that actually they're probably going to be quite disincentivized to give of their best at all times, because they've got far too much power, I would say. Yeah,
you're right about that. So traditionally, what essentially was the incentive to do what your bosses wanted and to try to do it very well, the incentive was not to get sacked.
Yes.
Because if the boss gave you an instruction or the company owner gave you an instruction, you completely ignored it and went down the pub, you would get sacked. But under the Workers' Rights Act, you won't get sacked. The boss, I say he or she, will end up in jail because they broke the law or something. It completely warps the relationship between the boss and the worker. And as I say, I don't think it doesn't understand that these people, the Angela Rayners of this world, don't understand the relationships between bosses and workers. It isn't all attrition. It isn't all hatred. It is working together to make a living.
Exactly that. That's what I mean by saying it sets up this artificial tension between a boss and someone that they're paying to do a job. Mostly this is a relationship of cooperation and positive cooperation. Otherwise, it's miserable for everybody. So I don't think it's necessary. I don't understand what is the impetus to bring this in. Where are the industrial scale abuses taking place that aren't currently addressed by all the many rights and regulations that we have? Because workers in the UK are very, very well protected, actually. I mean, employment law is pretty positive as far as a worker is concerned in the UK relative to many, many other countries. Even, by the way, America, the benefits that you get automatically, the rights that accrue to you, the holidays, the parental leave, on and on it goes. It's pretty generous already, and I just don't see what the actual need for this is. Where is the evil that is being addressed here? Where's the evidence that it's necessary?
And I think we should campaign very hard for this. The only people who are allowed to arrest people, walk into people's homes and search their homes, seize documents, seize computers, are police officers, not government agents. We don't want that, do we?
Absolutely not. And I can't even believe we're having this discussion, actually. I can't believe we're having this discussion. What is happening to our country?
I'll tell you what, Isabel, that's what happens when your Prime Minister turns out to be Kim Jong-Starmer. So there you go. Thank you very much for an excellent hour. You'll be back tomorrow. That's Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor. When we come back, more on Lindsay Hoyle. Just stop oil!
Across the UK on DAB+. On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls in about 30 minutes or so. So get on the line, 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on the spring statement by Rachel from Accounts, such as it was. What do you think the economy is standing now? She's screwed it up, hasn't she? She's messed it up. There's not going to be any growth. We're going to be stagnant for at least a year to come. None of us getting any wealthier. Most of us getting poorer. Guaranteed tax rises in September, going against yet another one of her broken promises. 0344 499 1000. And please let me know what you think about this alcoholic Pakistani paedophile who went to jail for sexually abusing children, came straight out, attacked another underage girl, a teenage underage girl, and then when the Home Office quite rightly said, right, you're getting deported, he appealed to a tribunal. An immigration judge said, absolutely, you can't be deported because of your human rights. I mean, if nothing else, you're an alcoholic. And alcohol is banned in Pakistan because it's a Muslim country. How can you get treatment for your booze problem? Like I care. Like anyone cares. Unbelievable. This guy's now walking our streets, a danger to our children because of this judge. I mean, this has got to stop, hasn't it? The European Convention on Human Rights. Let's leave it. Let's sack all these judges and get some human beings because they're clearly zoo animals or something. They've got the intelligence of zoo animals. 0344 499 1000. What do you think about Ed Miliband's war on fish and chips? Your fish and chips, if nothing else, is going to soar in price. You're going to be talking about 20 quid pretty quickly. And it's already soaring way beyond 10 in most places. It's going to be 20 soon. And it's all because of net zero. He won't let them fry their fish using gas flames, which means apart from the fact they're going to be really expensive, they're going to be rarer because a third of chippies will close, they'll be soggy because it's the wrong kind of heat. 0344 499 1000. And that last item I discussed with Isabel Oakeshott, the sinister spectacle of government agents enforcing the stupid workers' rights bill by being allowed to burst into people's houses, seize their computers, seize their documents, their private property, and arrest them. Surely the only people who should be allowed to do that in a free democracy are police officers, not agents of the government. Let me know what you think about all of those issues. And you might want to call me about this upcoming issue because we're going to talk about Long Haul Hoyle, the big spending Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle. Just stop Hoyle, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be that easy. Call me on that as well if you like. 0344 499 1000. Well, it is Hoyle time now, so let's go straight over to my guest for this item, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. It's always a pleasure to have him on the show, Philip Kilsley. Hi, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you again.
Right, well, you and I discussed this last week. This is Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Long Haul Hoyle, as he's called, who in 2 years of globe-trotting glamorously spaffed £250,000, £250,000 in expenses, taxpayers' money, spending things like 24 to nearly 25,000 going to Jakarta and Singapore, 41,000 going to Canberra in Australia, Ottawa, St Helena, South Africa, 24,000, Jordan, 15,000, so on and so forth. When he went to Montserrat in the Caribbean, he chartered a private jet in Australia and Los Angeles. He hired very, very expensive chauffeur-driven limousines. He stays in hotels costing like 900 quid a night, regularly goes out and buys everyone meals for 300 quid, 400 quid at our expense. And something ought to be done about this, I would say. Now, as I say, I've launched this campaign, Just Stop Hoyle, but you can't get a single MP to complain about this because they're terrified of the Speaker. If they get on his wrong side, he won't call them to make their little speeches, the little speeches that they think will propel them to high office and get them noticed. So the Speaker is inordinately powerful in that house of low repute we call the Commons. Anyway, I've been asking Hoyle's office for some time for some kind of explanation for this. No explanation has there been none. But anyway, incredibly yesterday, he addressed the Society of Editors, journalists. And you might say into the lion's den. None of them seem to quiz him about this. But he essentially, I think, tried to answer all the questions. Because what I say, Philip, so I'm droning on a bit now, but I think it's worth it. What I say is we are owed an explanation for what this guy has been doing. We're owed maybe an investigation into the money he's been spending on our behalf, but we won't get it because MPs are too terrified to question him. But anyway, here he was yesterday addressing the Society of Editors. He said that journalists play an important role in, and I'm quoting him now, teasing out the truth. Yeah, as in teasing out the truth about a jet-setting speaker who flies first class to glamorous destinations all over the world. He then went on to, this is what he says, I'm going to quote him now, we'll get this. He said, so this is clearly his explanation. Speakers have represented the House on the international stage at a range of interparliamentary events, including the G20 Speakers Conference and the Commonwealth Speakers and Presiding Officers Conference. Wish I was there, sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? And the Council of Europe Speakers Conference. He highlighting the G7 and the G20 Speakers Conferences, Hoyle said that these non-events had provided the opportunity to, and I quote, raise the profile of Ukraine and make a difference. And he went on to say that even when on some trips I have almost been in the air longer than I have been on the ground, just to get there, I think it is worth it to be the voice in the room that speaks out against Russian aggression. What is he talking about? I tell you what, we should cancel all these speakers' conferences around the world. What do they get together? They compare who shouts order best. How do yours do? Order! No, you need it. No, order. Try that one. Is that what they talk about? I mean, we're getting ripped off here, aren't we?
Well, it really goes to show the difference between what they think is important and what we think is important. Okay.
Yes.
And this on top of the 7 million quid that he's just spent on his house. And I just couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe you could spend 7 million pounds on your house if you're not if you're not Putin, So that's incredible to me. But we've got to remember.
That's his parliamentary house, by the way. We should point out that's his official residence, which when he got this exalted position, as you say, he ordered £7 million worth of renovation. It's an apartment in the house. It's said to have the best view of any residence in all of London, and I can imagine. He also had a £36,000 portrait painted of himself as well. This guy's a human taxpayer's money spending machine, isn't he?
Well, this comes to the main point, really, and this is about the pomposity, not just of him, but of all of them, actually. So he describes himself as an ambassador at home and abroad, and this is why, in his little world, in his mind, he has to spend 180 grand on first-class tickets over 2 years. £100,000 on first-class tickets over 2 years. Now, let's just put it in the context of the Labour Party and who he represents. Okay, this is, he's got a Chorley constituency. I wonder what those people think about it up there. There's not a lot of money up there. But this is the party of equity, isn't it? This is the party that bangs on about inequalities. This is the party that wants that would be happy for the British taxpayer to stump up reparations for slavery that was outlawed 200 years ago. This is the kind of stuff that's happening. So in a way, I'm quite happy that all of this craziness comes out, because I'll go on record and I'll say it now. I think this is the last Labour government we will ever have. We didn't know they were going to be as stupid as they've
Yeah.
but they've far exceeded our expectations. But because of that, we have to go through a period of pain where we have to see all of this stuff. We have to go through the stupidity, and then they're finished. They're completely done. Not least as well because they depend so much on the Islamic vote, and of course they're not going to get that in future. So we are looking at the last Labour government, and I would say good riddance to them. They've just been an absolute car crash.
Well, you're right about that. Stupidity is the word. I think Hoyle has been very injudicious in his wild spending because he's been found out. And I think the people of this country, we're sick and tired of these entitled public sector politicians thinking that they can take public money and fund their own glamorous lifestyles. He says that it is his job, the Speaker's role, is to act as an ambassador for the House of Commons, both at home and abroad. Well, OK, I can imagine, it'd be quite nice for the Speaker to pop into the old school and explain to the kids what he does. I can explain to the kids that he sits in a chair and goes, order, order. That's what he does. Doesn't take that long to explain, really. But OK, we'll call that being an ambassador for the House of Commons here at home. We don't need an ambassador for the House of Commons going to the Cayman Islands, going to Los Angeles, going to Montserrat, going to Australia. What does he do? What is his role when he's acting as what is his ambassadorial role when he gets to Australia? What does he say to them? Yeah, tell you what, guess how much it costs to redecorate my parliamentary apartment? Something like that. What is he talking about?
Well, I would have thought the last thing we need is to shout about the House of Commons anywhere.
Yes.
Ashamed of it, and ashamed of practically everybody in it. There are one or two good people there, but I just have this vision of him. I don't know whether viewers remember the Fast Show and Ralph Birkin QC just talking like this, but with a Chorley accent.
Yes, yes.
And it's just as we've talked about before, it's just so frustrating, and it makes you so angry. You've got to laugh at it. This is the obvious response to it, because if you think about it and let yourself get angry, you can get really, really angry. Let's just bear in mind that there are people unemployed. There are people who are relying on food banks. Not least in places like Lancashire and Yorkshire as well. That he represents Lancashire. So all of this stuff has a really serious side, but we've got to take the mickey. We've got to send them up because they are so ludicrous. But again, it's this thing. The Labour Party have spent so long, and the establishment, and they are the establishment, have spent so long saying that they're going to dismantle power. It's all about money. The grown-ups are now in the room. The grown-ups are taking over. Really? This is what the grown-ups are like? I don't think so.
That was the most ridiculous statement. They're a bunch of adolescents at best. Most of them, I don't think, have mentally at least reached puberty. But this guy, what is all this nonsense, by the way? This is what definitely is not the Speaker's role. Droning on about to raising the profile of Ukraine to make a difference. What has that got to do with the Speaker? And also sometimes travelling halfway around the world, because it's very important that he's in the room to make the point, to speak out against Russian aggression. These are kind of Labour policies, aren't they? They're nothing to do with the Speaker. What is he talking about?
Making a point about Russian aggression. Nobody knows who he is outside of the British Army. Nobody knows who he is, and my guess, the Russians don't care. Probably the Ukrainians don't either. Yeah. But again, it comes back to the central point, doesn't it, about what's important to them and what's important to us. And you've got so many Labour politicians obsessed with Gaza. You've got so many Labour politicians obsessed with Israel. You've got him talking about Ukraine. Nobody seems to care in that party about Britain. Nobody seems to care about the working class. Nobody seems to understand what's going on in this country. A lot of chaos going on in this country at the moment. We are a balkanized state. Maybe they should be looking inwards. Maybe they should be doing something about it. It's
unbelievable that he says that when he went to the G7 and the G20 speakers conferences, by the way, speakers conferences, if all these sort of equivalents of Lindsay Hoyles from around the parliaments around the world really do get to fly at their long-suffering residents' expense to these conferences should be cancelled. They're pointless, utterly pointless. But he should be raising the profile of Britain, the plight of British people, the trouble we're having with our borders or whatever, not raising the profile of Ukraine. What's that got to do with the British Speaker of the British House of Commons? It's outrageous. Now, the last point, and you're quite right, I mean, this is so egregious, this extravagance is so shocking that the only sort of natural reaction is just to laugh at it. As I always say, there's nothing more terrifying in politics than the sight of a socialist with an expense account, and he is the worst example I've ever come across. But here's the problem. We, the British taxpayers, deserve an investigation into this guy. We deserve to know exactly what he has been doing with our money and not let him get away with a feeble little speech to 150 editors yesterday in London, as if to explain everything. Oh, well, that's all right then. If you were raising the profile of Ukraine, why didn't you say, here's another £250,000 to fly around the world, raising the profile of Ukraine? But the point is, we can't get an investigation into this guy because no journalist can find a single MP out of 650 to speak out against this, to raise this issue, because they're terrified of the Speaker. And something needs to be done about this.
Yeah, I mean, that just says that the system is broken and there is no redress. We can't. If journalists like you can't do anything, then literally nobody can. But I mean, we know, because this story on Talk has been going for a good few days now, and everybody's interested in it. The views on it are huge. So the British public wants answers. Okay? The British public isn't going to get answers because there isn't a mechanism to get those answers. Again, I keep saying this, that's a really dangerous position for any government to be in.
Yeah.
Okay. There's all sorts of egregious spending. There's all sorts of stuff going on. But guess what? Big deal. Tough. You're not going to get any answers. We're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to hope it's going to go away. We're going to say a few silly ththings. We're going to say, oh, the press, it's great you're here, but we're not going to allow you to do anything about it. That's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Yeah, and he talks about journalists are essential to tease out the truth. Well, we can't tease out the truth about him. And if you think about it, going back, Philip, speakers have always been a problem because they are, in their own little world in Westminster, they're probably the most powerful person in that house. Without the speaker's favour, you don't get to speak, you don't get to ask questions. The speaker is the man who dispenses power to MPs. Right, you can speak, you can speak. So they're terrified of So if you think about it, we had trouble with old Gorbals Mick, didn't we, Michael Martin? Tremendous trouble with Burko, of course. And now we're having serious problems with Lindsay Hoyle. The Speaker, we need the system at Westminster to change so that the Speaker can be held to account, because right now he cannot be. He will not be, because no MP will speak out about this issue, and that is really, really worrying. But since he seems to think journalists are good to tease out the truth, I'm going to get it. I'm going to tease this truth out if it's the last thing I do. And the way it's going, I think it will be the last thing I do. Listen, Philip, thanks for discussing that very important issue. When we come back, we're going to talk about another important issue, which I think concerns freedom of speech. So that next, stay tuned.
If you look at the way that the Prime Minister has been convening European allies and Canada, Australia, New Zealand in support of our friends in Ukraine, this shows the UK leading the way. That's what our American friends want to see. They want to see Europe taking a greater share of its security. That's what Britain wants to see as well. That means all European countries spending more on defence and making sure that when they do, that defence spending is more lethal by us all working together.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kilsley. Philip, before we get on to the story I want to discuss with you, I've got to bring your attention to this because I know you'll be impressed and very pleased by this. I've literally just read this story. A Scottish NHS trust, I think it's called the NHS Highland, has just boasted that its new trans policy, which will allow transgender doctors and nurses to self-identify their gender. In other words, they'll be allowed into any space they like. Anyway, they're very pleased with this new trans policy because, and this is a quote, it will raise awareness of menstruation in men's toilets.
Well, I think I need my awareness raising about that.
Yeah.
Aware of it.
Yeah. But my awareness of menstruation in men's toilets is very low because, you know, I've been a bloke not only for most of my life, all of my life, and I've never seen any menstruating in men's toilets, but we better get ourselves up to Highland because it looks like new and exciting experiences are available to us up there, yeah?
Well, it's certainly a new, exciting lived experience, certainly. Imagine for someone who's identifying as something they are not, but it just, you know, it doesn't come as a surprise to me. I've spent the last 20 odd years in the higher education sector, in the university sector. I've seen everything. So, but I must admit, menstruating.
But exactly. So if anybody is in any doubt that this country is going stark staring mad, and maybe Scotland is ground zero of our national insanity, remember, there's a new trans policy up in Scotland, NHS Scottish Trust, that will raise awareness of menstruation in men's toilets. It's just beyond belief, isn't it?
Well, they just never learned, do they? Because it wasn't so long ago that they were having male rapists in female prisons in Scotland. You know, identifying women so they could get in female, and they get all sorts of problems, and still they don't learn because they're.
Yeah. And by the way, a little message to if anybody is listening or watching from the NHS Highland Trust, I don't want my awareness of men's menstruation in toilets to be raised. It's exactly where I want it to be. I have no awareness of this, and nor do I want any. Let's move on, for God's sake. This is a story about freedom of speech, I think. It's a sewage worker, a water worker, a guy called Damon Joshua, who has been sacked because he posted on social media. He posted this. He works for Severn Trent Water Company, Severn Trent Water. And he posted 1 year ago, it's about October the 7th. 1 year ago, our valued partners and friends, Israel, were horrifically attacked by a group of violent and disgusting terrorists. I can say the vast majority of Severn Trent Water's employees stand in solidarity with our Jewish, Israeli and Zionist colleagues against the evil of Islamist terror. pretty much within days he was sacked for this. He was suspended within hours and then sacked and told that his post on social media was derogatory and offensive. I thought it was okay to be derogatory about prescribed terrorist groups. I thought it was okay to be derogatory about terrorists. But this was Hamas, of course. But apparently not. Apparently it's a sacking offence. Now, you know, I think what he posted is sort of out there. It's quite provocative per se, but I do think it's certainly not offensive, and I think he has a right to say that. This is an issue of freedom of speech. I don't think Severn Trent Water should be firing him for this, do you?
No, I think they should be focusing on what they're supposed to be doing, which is dealing with sewage, and they're probably not doing that very well. All he was doing was offering support for a democratic country that had just suffered a pogrom in which women, children and men were raped, mutilated and murdered. And all he was doing was acknowledging that and saying he supported those people. As you say, Kev, immediately he's suspended, there's an investigation, he's sacked. But the people who are actually saying that his comments were one-sided, in other words, the people who were supporting terrorists are, I would imagine, still working there. Now, this is a problem because what we've got here, this is a company, but it's exactly the same through the institutions and the organizations. And what it is, it absolutely demonstrates how far these places have fallen, how much they are captured, okay, by leftist extreme ideology. But it's not just that. There's a sense of fear as well here. I get a sense that this company is terrified of an Islamist backlash. So both of those things, ideological capture and cultural terror, that's an incredible combination, and we have to understand how those elements play together, because that's the story right through the institutions. And if over the next few years we're going to dismantle all of this stuff, if we're going to pull the culture back, if we're going to push back on this idea of, one, of terror support, but of two, rabid anti-Semitism and racism, then we've really got to understand how this stuff works. This is, as I said, this is cultish behaviour, but this is cultish behaviour right at the heart of our public institutions and our public companies.
Yeah, but we have reached out to Damon Joshua, and we're hoping he'll come onto the show tomorrow, because he's certainly got a story to tell. This also feeds into this sort of sanctifying of offence. So apparently 3 of his fellow workers took offence at this. So he was told that he had been offensive. Well, I mean, what he said was that what happened on October the 7th was a terrible thing, basically. Now, if anybody wants to take offence from that, I mean, frankly, sod them. You know, we can't, just because somebody said they're offended, we can't automatically say, oh, well, if you're offended, he's fired. Now, the Toby Young's Excellent Free Speech Union has taken up Damon's case. They represented him at his disciplinary hearing, unfortunately to no avail. But Dr. Ben Jones, who was Damon's representative, he said, and I agree with him, he said sacking someone for condemning Hamas is one of the most egregious cases of cancel culture we have seen. He's got a point, hasn't he?
He really has, and all I can say is, you know, thank God for the Free Speech Union, because if it wasn't Toby Young and Ben and all of the other people there, then this stuff would just be even worse than it is now. We have a problem. I said before that we've got a balkanized society, but I said before, we've got captured institutions. Those two things are very difficult. The problem for us is what do we do about that? How do we approach the management class that is allowing this to happen, okay? Because what's happening is we've got this chattering class of people, essentially, aren't they? They follow the latest thing, and they are absolutely, totally blind as to the total evil of Hamas, okay? But the sense of I keep coming back to anti-Semitism. There's a kind of nasty anti-Semitism.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? I agree with that as well.
But it's just, sorry, just to finish the point, Kev.
No, go.
It's very prevalent in places like the NHS and the universities and all of these places that are absolutely at the heart of our culture and at the heart of how this country works and how it functions. So what we need to do is get in there and dismantle this stuff, but it's a huge thing to do. That's why I have to say you have to understand the capture and you have to understand the fear, because both of those things go together, and those are the things that you have to deal with.
Now, Severn Trent water bosses aren't here to talk for themselves, but I'd hazard a guess. You see, what I think about this story as well, you're absolutely right. There is the unpleasant aroma of anti-Semitism in the air here. And also it cuts to the heart of two-tier Britain. If Damon Joshua had posted, you know, I'm sick to death of these Christians, you know, and what they get up to, or if he had said, you know, it's terrible the way these Israelis are treating the people of Palestine, I'm going to hazard a guess that he would not have been fired. In other words, it's another one of these cases is thou shalt not speak badly of Islam. Other religions, fine, particularly our own. Church of England, absolutely fine. You really have a go at them. Catholics, go for it. Fill your boots. Jewish, oh, definitely. But Islam, thou shalt not go there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so many things. Part of it, as I say, a major part of it is fear of Islam. There's no question about that. Another part of it is an absolute indoctrination into far leftist Jeremy Corbyn type ideology. But there's something else as well, and it's this like sick self-loathing that we seem to have at the centre of our culture, especially the chattering class. You know, this idea that we'll let Pakistani rape gangs, for example, run riot, rather than actually face the fact that there is a real problem there. And it's almost as though our culture deserves it because somehow our culture is racist. And of course, our culture is perhaps the least racist culture in the world.
Yes, exactly. Well, listen, Philip, it's been really good to talk to you, but I've got a dash. Because I've got some important work to do. I've got to raise awareness of menstruation in men's toilets. So look out for me. I'll be on the campaign trail doing that. So lots of good work to do. It's great to have you on the show, though. Seriously, Philip, thank you very much for your time. Philip Kilsey, their Senior Fellow for the New Culture Forum, speaking a lot of sense, as per always does. What do you think about that? What do you think about this worker? What do you think about this poor guy who's been sacked, I think, unfairly? It's a question of freedom of speech in the end. If you want to condemn Hamas, you should be able to. Frankly, if you want to condemn Islam, or if you want to condemn Jews, or if you want to condemn Israel, it's a freedom of speech issue, isn't it? You shouldn't lose your job for stating your opinions. Those opinions didn't harm anyone else. So I think that Damon Joshua should get his job back, and we'll try and get him on the show tomorrow if we can. It'd be good to talk to him. Let's go to break now. When we come back, I'll take a couple of calls, and later in this hour we're going to be talking about an amazing story about the pyramids in Egypt. It's absolutely astonishing story. Were they atop vast underground cities? An increasing number of experts believe it could well be true. It's an extraordinary story, but first, your calls, so stick around.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's take a couple of calls. By the way, more calls around about 9:25, and then we'll talk for the rest of the show. So this isn't the end of the calls, but let's take a couple now. Let's go to Kent and talk to Graham. Graham, you want to talk about old Long Haul Hoyle, the big spending speaker?
Well, I'm going to make a couple of comments about democracy in this country, and Hoyle is very involved in that. Yeah. Firstly, I would say to you that we ought to be looking at this new planning situation that the Labour Party are now desperate for growth to it to be worked.
Yeah.
With no opposition, we could be looking at the new slums of the future if they just dump these houses down without proper consideration.
That's a really good point. How many times in the history of this country, particularly since the 60s, has the entire nation and the government got very excited? Oh, look, we're building these fantastic homes of the future. And these were the dreadful sort of council estate tower blocks that turned into slums. You're right, Graham. That's a really good point. I bet you all of these houses that Angela wants to put up sharpish will pretty soon go downhill.
Yeah. Now let's look at Hoyle. We know about Hoyle. He's got history. The rumours are he colluded with Starmer to stop certain discussions going on.
I remember that. I've accused him and been slapped down of favouring Labour. I think he does, but he furiously denies it. Yeah, all the MPs, by the way, Graham, they'll go, "Oh no, he's studiously fair, studiously impartial," because they're terrified to criticise this.
Let's look at what he did this afternoon. Yeah. Now the Shadow Chancellor was right to use the word fiddle a couple of times, and he got up and told him off, admonished him.
Did he? I didn't see that.
Did. And the other thing he doesn't do is when, Farage speaks, he really doesn't protect Farage at all. And he allows Starmer to get away without answering any questions.
That's a good point. Starmer, I mean, they're always evasive, prime ministers in particular. Yeah. When they're up at the box, prime ministers and indeed leaders of the opposition, they're always very evasive. But I do think it's so annoying when they get answered a perfectly reasonable question. Will you raise taxes, to pay for the welfare bill? And they'll turn around and say, what I know is that the Tories ruined this country. Answer the damn question. You're right. Hoyle should make him answer the question.
And that's why Badenoch probably, I don't think she's that particularly great, but she doesn't really score her points through because he just laughs. He makes a joke up, and I mean, that's not democracy. Yeah. And the other thing I want to look at, and I'm particularly interested in how Andrew Bailey's going to react when inflation goes up again. Though I'm hearing political pressures being put on him, and I thought he was supposed to be independent.
That great independence. But I'm sure political pressure will be put on him to keep inflation down, but good luck with that. I'm afraid that Ms Reeves has set a certain ball in motion, and inflation will soar. Everything's going to go wrong, there's no doubt about it. Graham, really good call. Thank you very much. Please call me again. Graham in Kent there. All right, let's quickly talk to David in County Down before we go to break. Hi, David.
Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah. I've got a message here saying from you saying the UK has gone down the pan. Yes. I tend to agree. Go on.
It's when I left school at the age of 15, and I got employment straight away to help the household budget. I then joined the Navy at 15 and a half, and I served in the Navy for 7 years and 5 years in the submarine service.
Yeah.
I left and got a job with a retail, and I worked my way up to distribution manager. I lived in Reading and I lived in Leicester.
Right.
And I was there when 9/11 happened.
All right, yeah.
And I seen all these people walking down the centre of Leicester with their banners and their writing on their flags. But they wouldn't let the people have flags for St George's Day.
Oh yeah, that's so. What? Absolutely. I mean, it's a weird thing. You're from County Down, right? So it's a weird thing that when the Scots celebrate their culture and love their flag, everybody goes, oh, it's marvellous, they're so patriotic. Same for the Welsh, same for the Irish, but when the English do it, we're racists.
I have about 10 flags out every 12th and the celebrations throughout that. But the thing here was, my father served throughout the Second World War in the Royal Ulster Rifles. He was called back from the Northwest Frontier in 1939 to prepare, to go to Normandy, everything.
Yeah.
And if he's turning in his grave, what's happened to the UK.
Yeah. You're right, David. There's a lack of pride in the country, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not surprising. I think, the declining pride in our nation is commensurate with the dreadful governments we keep having imposed upon us, or we vote for them, but then they screw the country up. I think the levels of disillusionment right now, after 14 years of Tory uselessness, and now Labour, this disaster of this Labour lot, people have just had enough. I mean, it's hard to feel pride in a country when you just get successive governments completely mess things up. But listen, David, thank you for a good call. I've got to move on, though, because I have to go to break. But thank you for ringing. David in County Down there. Is he right? Are we losing pride in our nation? It's a good question. And if so, why? Are we losing pride in our nation? 03444991000. Let's go to break. Next up, we're going to talk about the pyramids. Amazing story. Stay tuned for it.
If Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves think that the mood of the British people is that they are prepared to see additional cuts to vital services for working people, additional hardship for poor pensioners, so Rachel Reeves can afford to send that tank to Ukraine, they are about to get the shock of their political lives.
Yeah.
We do have to confront Putin. We do have to support Ukraine. But I'm telling you, the British people, again, are not going to accept it.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is my favourite story of the night, the mystery of the Great Pyramids of Giza, you know, the famous ones in Egypt. There's a theory going round, and this is based on high-tech radar technology. They've taken kind of underground pictures using radar. And there's a theory now that the peaks, the pyramids that we see, may have been just the pinnacles of vast structures that plunged down into the earth more than 2 kilometres. And then in fact what you're seeing there is the tip of massive structures, columns, vast chambers, underground cities, where it is thought that the pyramids planned to retreat in the event of Armageddon. There is definite evidence that there are these huge chambers down there, 263 feet across. That's pretty damn big. These huge vertical columns that go down so far that, if it's true, they go down, they say that these columns may plunge to a depth of 2,125 feet. And that if you add that to the peak of the pyramid, the total height of that structure would be 2,835 feet, which would make it the tallest building ever constructed, taller now than the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world in Dubai, which is 2,717 feet. So it's possible that 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, they built the tallest structure ever made, and that there are underground cities underneath the pyramids. I, for one, find that rather intriguing. Let's talk to our favourite historian, Ashley Hearn. Hello, Ashley. Please don't knock this down. Say it's possible.
My role is sort of the representative of the Order of the Wet Blanket, really, aren't I? Sort of come on and sort of say.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose, in their defence, that they are sort of adopting new technology to an old problem. It's very easy for scholars to get these sort of paradigms of thought where you accept sort of the conventional wisdom, and then you sort of tend to be resistant to any challenges to that. And certainly over the last 10, 15 years, lots of discoveries have, further back really, have sort of reversed what we used to think about how human societies have changed over time. So there used to be the view that you'd have the very simple hunter-gatherer societies, then they adopted farming, then they adopted cities, and essentially you couldn't really do anything too complicated in terms of massive building structures until you developed quite large centres of population. And a lot of that has been proved to be untrue. I mean, those famous discoveries of the famous site of Göbekli Tepe, which is this large structure of megaliths which date to about 10,000 BC. So a long basic way of saying, well, why not? The trouble is, again, it's the evidence that's used for this. I mean, it's these engineers who are sort of using this new technology, synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography, and they've been using it quite extensively. So they've been using it to look at the three great pyramids. They basically did some research at the Khufu pyramid, and then they've been looking at the central pyramid where they found all these. They claim to have found all these structures underneath. Now, pyramids elsewhere in the world do have underground structures which have been excavated and are being excavated. The most famous example, I mean, the Daily Mail article, there's a chap from Denver who mentions this. This is what, when I saw the story, immediately sort of struck me. So there's a famous city called Teotihuacan.
I've been there. I've been there.
Fantastic. I mean, three massive great pyramids there. Pyramid of the Moon, Pyramid of the Sun, Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent. And under each of them, you have these quite extensive caverns. And again, over the last 5 years, they found more and more of these. So we shouldn't necessarily assume, well, how could they possibly have constructed these, given that they lived in these sort of very relatively straightforward, simple societies? They wouldn't have the technology. Even the building of the pyramids themselves is a remarkable achievement. We only see the inside of them, really. And the fact that the limestones on the outside were sort of so carefully engineered to fit together. But as always, if you look at the pictures, I mean, I can sort of see where they're coming from. There's clearly something underneath there, but to elaborate that into this idea of very precise measurements in terms of the depth of it, to call the word city, and what do we mean by a city?
I think city is it's not a tube system underneath the city, but it says, as I say, it says it's got these huge 8 enormous vertical columns that they say plunge to an extraordinary depth of 2,125 feet. Which is a couple of kilometres, and that they plunge into colossal cubic chambers that are 263 feet across. The one thing I would say about this, Ashley, is this. Now, notwithstanding that we're talking about allegedly, they even say there might have been stairs going round these huge columns and things like that. But if for example, the city of Venice, if you go underneath, it is built on huge sort of stilt wooden columns that are then put onto sort of planks of wood on the base of the ocean to make sure that the city doesn't sink. So arguably these vertical columns underneath the pyramids may have been put there to make sure the pyramids don't sink beneath the sand.
I mean, that's my instinct, is if you're looking at something like foundations, you don't necessarily have to explain it by sort of, again, we're back like we were a few weeks ago. We were talking about buried treasure and all the other things that attract interest.
I always come on to you with all these sort of these layman's fantasy stories.
I mean, it's very Indiana Jones. I mean, again, they've used this sort of Egyptian text to come up with this date of 38,000 years ago. It's pretty tendentious, that. I mean, there's a famous text which dates the earliest rulers of Mesopotamia, and they're claiming they lived for 60,000 years. So if you're going to use that system, you go right. There's no this goes back to the old idea, and you may have heard this before. This is an idea put forward by people like Graham Hancock, who has a whole series on Netflix, that there used to be this ancient world civilization that disappeared at the end of the Ice Age, and the rising sea levels essentially destroys it, and a lot of what exists subsequently is a reflection of this ancient society.
Well, let me tell you, actually, that ancient civilization definitely existed because it's confirmed 57 times a day on Facebook. But here's the thing, though. The Sphinx, the other part of this big theory, that perhaps we don't know, or the mystery of the pyramids and the Sphinx has yet to be explained. This same people who come up with the theory of the underground city say that the Sphinx may be like 10,000 years old, much older than we think, because they say that the marks on the stone, the sandstone, could only have been formed by torrential rain, and there hasn't been torrential rain in Egypt for 10,000 years.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is quite an old idea. This has been around since the 80s and 90s, I mean, even earlier than that. The famous theory was that it dates to 10,500 BC. Have you heard the theory, which is to do with the Orion constellation? No. The idea that the Giza pyramids are aligned with the way that Orion would look, but from 10,000
years ago,
The trouble is that was based on, you have to do two things. One, you have to turn the pyramids upside down and look at them from north to south. Right. And secondly, the angle is 38 degrees, but actually, if you look at the angle of Orion, it looked 10,000 years ago. This is due to a process called precession, which sees the stars move around. It's about 8 degrees of angle out.
Right.
So a lot of these theories are really exciting. They're really interesting. We are right to sort of not sort of reject them out of hand, but as I say to my students, you have to have the positive evidence. All of the excavations about the Sphinx have only produced evidence from the 3rd millennium, at the time of when the pyramids are constructed, all the pottery, all the clay from round about it. So they may be right, but there's no positive evidence. We'll have to see when they publish their papers, because again, it hasn't been peer reviewed yet. Right. They've made a big fuss about it, which has got lots of attention.
It's fascinating stuff. Now, listen, you've got 30 seconds. What do you think the pyramids were or are, and what was the Sphinx?
I see no evidence not to say that they are essentially tombs, but they are right. People are right to say they may have had multiple purposes. I tend to reject some of the fringe theories. Ben Carson's famous theory that they were built to store the grain for Joseph and the story from the Bible.
Right.
The Sphinx, as far as I'm concerned, all the evidence suggests that it's contemporary and was built to put the face of one of the kings whose pyramid was there. It was later reshaped by a later pharaoh and reused there. So it's really interesting. As always with these theories, I look forward to them providing more evidence, and that we can, if we can, everyone wants to reverse these uncommon.
Well, listen, Ashley, you know I don't need any evidence to get you on, so it's brilliant to talk to you. Really fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. That's Ashley Hearn, our favourite historian. Great stuff, that, isn't it? After the news, it's Kinsey Schofield on Meghan and Harry. Lots going on. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, here comes the good bit. Well, actually, there's been a load of good bits tonight, haven't there? Let's be fair. But this is going to be the very good bit because, my God, it's been one hell of a week for the gruesome twosome Harry and Meghan. It is all going on. So we need to talk to Kinsey Schofield, our royal commentator, about that in just a little while. But I should tell you that as soon as I've finished with Kinsey, that's a bit disparaging, isn't it? As soon as Kinsey has disappeared into the ether, I'm going to be taking your calls around about 9:25. 03444991000. Call about anything you like. You might want to talk about Harry and Meghan because, my God, Kinsey, it has been an eventful week for those two. Let me start by putting forward to you a theory that I have, which I may or may not feature on this week's edition of my smash hit TV show, What Just Happened, available on YouTube. Goes out on Friday night, 9 o'clock. Right. Meghan, right now, she's sort of here, she's there, she's every bloody where. She's in your face. You cannot move for Meghan. She's on Instagram with her kids, flogging tat. We heard that she's got a deal now to, as you mentioned the other night, to take a cut in all the clothes that get sold that she's wearing on her TV shows and when she goes onto Instagram. Also, she's just released more dreary details of her incredibly boring touring upcoming podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, in which she will interview female entrepreneurs, women tycoons, about their secrets of success. And also, for God's sake, she suddenly turned up at Gwyneth Paltrow's place. So those two have got together in Montecito. We'll play that video in just a little while. So, Meghan has definitely achieved a very high level of world fame. The world fame she always desperately desired, but worked out she was never going to get, starring in a 2-bit little cable show called Suits. So she married a royal. She married Harry. Harry has vaulted her to this position. As Graydon Carter, the former editor of Vanity Fair, said the other day, Harry's usefulness to Meghan diminishes daily. In other words, my question to you is, do you agree with me that Harry's function in Meghan's life may have come to an end? She doesn't really need him anymore. She's where she wanted to be, world famous, cashing in on that world famous status, and she now believes she can be a billionaire. I'm wondering whether, as we see her achieve stratospheric levels of celebrity, whether she feels that her use for Harry is done, and that maybe, you know, we won't see too much more of him in her life. While we can't move for her. Everywhere you look, she's in your face. But don't hear anything about him. Well, we'll talk about his charity problems. But in terms of his activities, nothing until this charity fallout yesterday. Her can't move for her. So I'm just wondering whether, she's got a track record for ruthlessly cutting people out of her life who she doesn't feel are any use to her anymore, like her first husband, like a father, like a brother, like a sister. Do you think Harry may join that list?
I do think Harry may join that list, but maybe not yet. I mean, she still needs a babysitter. They're still toddlers. Yeah. So I think that Harry is providing some service to her right now, and that is free childcare, which she, of course, is going to take great advantage of. Who's sitting at home with the kids when Meghan Markle is sitting in Gwyneth Paltrow's kitchen? The answer is Prince Harry. But I have felt this way too. I do think we're going to continue to see her phase him out, especially in the development and in the release of her Confessions of a Female Founder podcast, because she wants to be recognized as this self-made female entrepreneur. And the reality is she's reached this height of recognition. I don't want to say success, I'll say recognition, because of the man that she married. So I do think we're going to see her fight back on that line, and that line that's going to become, she doesn't want that to be history. She doesn't want people years from now to think that the only reason she made it was because of who she married. So she's trying to change that through, I believe, this podcast, and even through the television series where we only saw him for the last 15 minutes or seconds. But I should stress that she will always be attached to Prince Harry when it comes to the history books, because he sacrificed everything for her, and his life so far has been a complete disaster because of it.
Yeah, well, we need to talk about Harry at the moment, because boy, oh boy, is he a ship adrift now. I mean, directionless doesn't even begin to cover it. The one thing I'll say for her, I'm not sure I approve of most of her activity, but she is being industrious at the moment. She is working. She is a
Wait, Kev, I love that you're trying to be nice about her, because this is a rare moment that we should acknowledge. But I just got off the phone with Rupert Bell, and he was like, what really, grinds my gears is that by throwing up all of these outfits on a website, which he reminded me couldn't go up on asever.com, because on As Ever, trademark-wise, she's not allowed to sell
that's
clothing.
not open for business, is it?
Yeah. But he said it's like a soda machine. Meghan does not want to work. She wants to sit back in Montecito on her 13th glass of whatever, on her 13th mojito. We saw how much she liked to throw back a bevy on the Netflix series, and she wants money to just fall into her bank account with little to no effort. And I watched some TikTok videos, and it reminded me of how different Americans are versus Brits. The American reaction to Meghan's Instagram influencer website is how savage. You know how when Kate Middleton, don't call her Kate Middleton, you know how when Kate Middleton wears something, it sells out? Well, now you can buy Meghan Markle's favorite clothes on her, My Store. And how smart of her, because now she's getting a cut when it sells out. And I'm thinking, how appalling, how greedy and shallow. This is me being the, my UK mind. I'm like, that's the antithesis of Princess Diana or Queen Elizabeth trying to make a buck. That greed that you see that has fueled Meghan Markle, which is a shift from the vengeance. So I'm grateful that we've taken a break from vengeance, but now we're seeing her fueled by greed.
Yeah, I mean, apparently she's convinced she's going to become a billionaire, and this Go Shop deal she does, which means that every time she appears in public and gets photographed, maybe on Instagram, maybe on a TV show with Love Meghan, those pictures become public, and if those clothes are bought, she gets between 10 and 30% of the bought because of her. She gets from the manufacturers 10 to 15 or to 30% of the deal. So there is talk that already after with Love Meghan, she might have made $100,000. Frankly, I doubt that. I doubt it. I'm not convinced she's going to be this massive, successful, sartorial influencer. But if she is, good luck to her. But what we think in Britain is she's still loosely a member of the royal family, and we think this is tawdry behaviour. This isn't
what a shame. What a shame that she's still a member of the British royal family.
This isn't what the royals do. This isn't what the royals do. I think it's tacky, tawdry, and not nice to see. She's venal. This is naked venality, isn't it?
And it's conflicting with the Megxit agreement. The reason that the royal family did not go full Wallace and Edward on these two is because they made a promise. And one of the promises they made was to not monetize the monarchy. And here you have Meghan, her words not mine, Duchess of Sussex, splashed across the same page where you can buy cheap lip gloss. It's just so vile to me, and I would be less hostile about it. I'd be completely judgmental still, and I would be annoyed, but I'd be less hostile if Meghan had a nice reputation. But she has developed a reputation for being a mean girl, for bullying her staff to the point of tears and therapy. So no, I am going to hold you, I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'm going to say you are violating the terms of the Megxit agreement, and, any consequences that come your way, you deserve, because the royal family was kinder than they had to be upon Harry and Meghan's exit based on Meghan's behavior while she was a working royal.
Yeah. And all she ever thought about marrying Harry was this was her passport to untold riches. She thought, I'll be a British princess, they're swimming in money, I'm going to be so rich. And then she found out that actually William and Kate would be in charge of the allowances that Harry and Meghan got. That in fact she wouldn't be swimming in money, she'd be perfectly well off, she'd live in lovely homes, lovely houses and castles and mansions, but she wouldn't necessarily be that well off. And at that point she said to Harry, we're out of here, I need to make my own billion, which she now believes she's going to do. As I say, I will believe that when I see it. Now there's been this strange, I think, confected alleged feud between Meghan and her lifestyle site rival and Montecito neighbour Gwyneth Paltrow. Well, I think the feud element can now be dispatched to the scrap heap of history because it seems like these two rival lifestyle gurus have come together to put pay to all the talk. Let's have a look at this very brief video that speaks 1,000 words.
I genuinely do not understand this at all whatsoever. Do you understand this?
She overacts every single time, doesn't she?
I was just thinking, like,
she's
oh
really
my God, she's such
badly
a bad actor.
overacting. Just say no.
Right. It's so annoying. It's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I applaud her I applaud the effort to have some sort of sense of humor, since she's spent the last 4 years sobbing on every television show that would hand her a microphone.
Yeah.
But the delivery wasn't exactly what I expect.
No, exactly. So I do think that there isn't a rivalry there, but I also think that both of them, Gwyneth probably thought, I can cash in here. Let's remember that Gwyneth is her empire, her wellness empire, lifestyle site, Goop, is worth $250 million. Meghan's lifestyle site, as ever, is worth approximately nothing. Absolutely nothing, because she's not open for business, because she's useless and can't seem to get anything going. American Riviera Orchard never did happen. It's now over a year since she announced American Riviera Orchard, changing it swiftly about a month ago to As Ever because of trademark troubles. She's now got more trademark troubles, so As Ever isn't open. I don't think Gwyneth feels particularly threatened by Meghan, and that was a good bit of PR by both of them, to be honest with you, but certainly it probably did Gwyneth more good than Meghan.
I have a theory about this, because I've said from the get-go there was no beef, and that Gwyneth Paltrow's video, I said this, I mean, some people refuse to put my words in their articles because it didn't fit their narrative, but I specifically said, I followed Gwyneth for years. Every weekend she jumps on Instagram in her pajamas. She looks a hot mess, and I love it. And she makes breakfast for Brad, her husband, and we watch her make breakfast for Brad, and sometimes she makes him a weird breakfast and he eats it. And this is just a thing that she does.
No one knows why, of course, but you know,
it's because
these California girls, these Hollywood girls.
She's pushing the Goop lifestyle.
I know,
she's pushing this. That's her like mini Martha Stewart moment every weekend. But what I would say is there's a couple of things here. I think that Gwen and Meghan risk showing social media trolls how much power they have over them by reacting to this. Because this started by just some people on the internet who decided to misinterpret a video because they're not familiar enough with Gwyneth Paltrow's brand. And you know how much power that random person had? Enough power to get Meghan Markle's teeny tiny little butt into Gwyneth Paltrow's kitchen. Look what you've done. Because Gwyneth said herself, we're not friends in Vanity Fair magazine. She said, I can barely get past the security guards. So you guys out there who perpetuated this rumor have created this relationship. But, you know, I also think it's Gwyneth putting her money where her mouth is, because she said in Vanity Fair, I don't see her as competition. There's room enough for everybody. You know, I wish her well. And so I applaud Gwyneth Paltrow for proving that she is who she is, unlike hypocrite Meghan Markle, who always says one thing and does the absolute opposite.
Yeah, I agree with that. I never really did read too much into this alleged feud. And it's a big if Meghan ever does sort of boost her empire to be worth $250 million, trust me, Gwyneth won't be so accommodating. But right now, she ain't threatened by Meghan. Now, moving on, let's talk about Harry. As I said earlier, I believe Harry has fulfilled his function in Meghan's social mountaineering life. And he doesn't really have anything to do now. I know he had two charities that were very important.
Hey, but don't forget the African Parks charity, which is also having a meltdown right now, Kev. Invictus African Parks in Senebale.
Well, Senebale is the one I didn't know about. Well, you can tell me about African Parks in just a moment. moment. But Sentebale is his beloved charity from Lesotho. The landlocked African country, said to be his favourite country on earth. And this was a charity that he formed in 2006 in honour of his mother, Princess Diana, because she did so much work for people with HIV and AIDS. So this charity is to help and support kids in Lesotho, in fact in South Africa generally, suffering from HIV and AIDS. Well, anyway, it has spectacularly unravelled extraordinary scenes, as yesterday, late last night in fact, just after I came off air, Harry and his co-trustee just suddenly quit in a massive row revolving around alleged racism, misogyny, new word to me, misogynoir, which is hatred of black women, and they've quit in a big row with the chairperson of Sentebale, someone called Dr. Sophie Chandorka, who has issued a statement, I'll read that out in just a little while, in which she makes her opinion of Harry pretty damn clear. So Harry has sensationally quit. Now, before we actually pick this apart, have a look at this. This is, we're going to play some film. This is Harry and Meghan with Sophie Chandorka. And, you know, now, I think that the body language is kind of weird there. Maybe there was something going on.
Meghan's trying to move her. Meghan's shushing her to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. So perhaps there was tension back then. Now, racism, misogyny, misogynoir, bullying, mismanagement, these are all the charges that have been made against Sentebale, established in 2006. Now, we're not necessarily saying any of that is Harry's fault, but Sophie Chandorka has issued a statement saying, listen to this, there are people in this world who behave as though they are above the law and mistreat people and then play the victim card and use the very press they disdain to harm people who have the courage to challenge their conduct. She's talking about Harry there, isn't she? And this row apparently, centres on the fact that I think it was Dr. Chandorka wanted to move all the fundraising for this organisation to Africa. Currently it's outside of Africa, and Harry and his fellow trustees did not want that. So basically this charity has fallen apart, unravelled, and Harry has had to suddenly sensationally quit. So there goes one more raison d'etre in his life, one less thing for him to do. It just strikes me his life is getting emptier by the day. But what do you make of this charity row in Africa?
Well, I mean, I think in general, the chaos, it's just on par for what we expect from Prince Harry today. I appreciate the fact that he is showing solidarity with the trustees and his co-founder, but I would want to sit down and understand Dr. Sophie better. To me, common sense says, Harry, you're no longer in the UK, so why would we have an arm of our charity in the UK when you're now in America? Let's focus on, here, which is what Dr. Sophie's saying. But this escalated to the trustees quitting because she filed a report with a higher-up charity commission because she wants the charity investigated.
Well, I've got to say, just sorry to interrupt there, I should have said that. Well, they are now. They are officially the charity commission here. Which basically is the organisation, the watchdog organisation for all charities, making sure that they're above board, that the money collected is used for the right causes, indeed that they're run properly, the management is good, the staff are well treated. That's called the Charity Commission, and further to complaints by Sophie Chandorka, they are now officially investigating Sentebale. So quite a low point for Harry. Harry apparently is devastated. This was his favourite charity.
Yeah, but you said it's not necessarily Harry's fault, but I'd also stress, quoting from one of my favorite films, Remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership. And if you know that you can get away with bad behavior, assuming that her accusations are true, if you know that you can get away with bad behavior because Prince Harry's off in another country not paying attention, then why wouldn't you? And she does make it sound like this was just a vanity project for Prince Harry, and she's trying to reorganize the charity, and she wants it to be more focused. And you know, obviously there are two sides to every story, and we have to wait and see what the investigation determines. But I will say without a shadow of a doubt that this issue would have not happened if the British royal family and the palace were still involved in this charity. Because this is another one of those instances where the palace created the template. You know, Prince Harry's team helped develop this charity, and I have sources at Invictus that say similar thing to watch for similar things in the future. It's falling apart under Prince Harry's management, especially with the influence of Meghan Markle.
And let's talk about African Parks, his other charity. He's a director of this. He joined the board of directors in 2023. This is a story that has just dropped today, that hundreds of bull elephants have trampled at least 10 villagers to death after these animals were relocated by this charity.
I mean, and that's on the low side of scandal with African Parks. Some of their rangers are accused of sexually assaulting the local villagers and attacking the villagers, as well as killing them. So, I mean, that's on the low end of the scandal when it comes to African Parks, which is currently under investigation for deaths and assaults. This, of course, is a brand new story that does not surprise me. But Prince Harry, that 2023 title you mentioned, that was a promotion for him. He's been a part of this charity for quite some time and refuses to answer any questions about some of the investigations happening surrounding it. And when they had an event in New York, the last time Prince Harry was in New York, it was not open to the public. It was not open to the media. They would not allow the media inside because, I mean, and that's super shady to me with everything going on within the African Parks charity. Why would you not welcome the media in and want to be totally transparent with every move going forward while you're under investigation for all of these horrific accusations?
I'll tell you, if it wasn't for the Invictus Games, which is great, and we mustn't criticise that, that's a very impressive endeavour by the Prince. But if it wasn't for that, you'd be tempted to say that everything Prince Harry touches when it comes to charity turns to crap.
It's not been great lately. And you're right. What is he doing in Los Angeles, California? He works from home. We understand that Meghan and him have desks like across from each other, and they just stare at each other all day barefoot in California. Like, what are these two doing? But I do believe that we will find out that he probably was not as involved in Sentebale as he should have been, and that maybe that there were some mistakes made, but this, Dr. Sophie, she says, I'm a whistleblower, and this is them asking me to step down is retaliation, and I'm staying. My objective is to make this the best charity in the world, so I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of the sense of this seems to be that the trustees felt that she was causing too many problems. She says she's a whistleblower, alerting the authorities to bullying, alleged bullying, alleged mismanagement, and racism, misogyny, misogynoir, hatred of black women, and so on and so forth. So she says she's a whistleblower. and they wanted her out, and she's refused to go. So they've both gone. Harry and his fellow prince, the Prince of Lesotho, has left as well. So it's a real mess, isn't it? A hell of a mess.
Yeah, and I do think that this was probably one of the hardest announcements Prince Harry's had to make, aside from the fact that this is a charity associated with his mother's legacy. He also knows that everything associated with him is going to be heightened and magnified and amplified. So when Prince Harry steps down from a charity, it embarrasses everyone involved. It doesn't just embarrass the trustees, it does embarrass Prince Siso, because now everybody's asking a lot of really difficult questions. And I just, as you were talking, I thought to myself, wow, that's a name that the Sussexes, or that's a descriptive word that the Sussexes just can't seem to shake. Bully.
Yeah,
Bully.
Really good point. Always the bullying. She still stands accused of being the bullying boss from hell who reduced her staff to tears, so she'll never get rid of that. But going forward, we will track her eventful life, and it's your birthday tomorrow, isn't it?
It is. I'm turning dirty 40.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't think you were more than 21.
God love you.
But okay, listen, really, honestly, Kinsey, it's a pleasure working with you, and have a fantastic birthday tomorrow. And we will reconvene on Monday as per. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Kinsey Schofield, 40 years old. I didn't know. Fabulous at 40. I think that's the phrase we should use. Lyle, let's go to break. When we come back, your phone calls, your messages, and your WhatsApp voice notes. So much still to come. Stick around.
If Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves think that the mood of the British people is that they are prepared to see additional cuts to vital services for working people, additional hardship for poor pensioners, so Rachel Reeves can afford to send that tank to Ukraine, they are about to get the shock of their political lives.
Yeah.
We do have to confront Putin. We do have to support Ukraine. But I'm telling you, the British people, again, are not going to accept it.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
WhatsApp voice notes now, Carl, on what it says here, budget. I'm assuming we mean spring statement there, or Rachel from accounts generally. Anyway, take it away, Carl.
I don't trust this government to take away the money from the correct people. There are legitimate people with serious mental health issues who can't work, but they've basically been taken out of the system totally. I genuinely don't trust this government. You're not telling me that 5 million people are all pulling a fast one. And a lot of people are going to end up losing money that they desperately need.
I don't trust them 1 inch. I definitely don't trust them, Carl. I'm with you all the way there. And our welfare system, our benefit system is just... It's just loco. It's completely insane. I mean, we are. It's like concrete boots around the national economy. We're giving away so much money. You know, our budget. I think the total benefit bill is something like £300 billion or something. A lot of people deserve it. You know, welfare is not inherently a bad thing, but it is when you have millions and millions of people sort of claiming that they are sort of mentally ill or they have mental health problems. You know, when they probably don't. You know, or they're a bit depressed, they're a bit sad or whatever. You know, why do they get free cars? Why do they get signed off work for life? We've got a real problem there, and this government's doing nothing to solve it, nothing about it. A bit like the migrant crisis. They're not solving that either, are they? Right, let's go to the phones. I've got a few more WhatsApp voice notes that I will read out or I will play out later. But got quite an interesting, I like this one. This is from Don in Chelmsford, a message. The trio from hell. Crazy Ed, Rachel from accounts, and Big Ange will ruin our country between them. I think we want the foursome from hell, the feeble foursome from hell, because you forgot Toe-Tier Kia himself, didn't you? Free Gear. He's the one who's really ruining this country, fixing the foundations. Let's go to the phones. Look, it's Tarquin. Where you been, Tarquin? I've missed you.
I've missed you, bro. How you been?
All right. What have you been up to? You usually ring most nights.
Well, I've been writing another song for you, but because it's not about DEI, it's not appropriate really for tonight. But I will do it when you cover DEI next time, Kev. All right?
All right. Well, I'll make a point of covering DEI tomorrow then, 100%.
Excellent. All right, then I'll ring in. Definitely.
All right, mate. So Lindsay Hoyle.
Yeah, just like to say kudos to you. That is brilliant what you've made. Let's just stop Hoyle. Absolutely fantastic, that is.
Well, and I mean it. I think, you know, I'm a bit of a dog with a bone on this story, and I think other journalists could be the same. It's identified a real problem that we have with our democracy, that there is one person who basically can get away with almost anything, murder, whatever, in Westminster, in the House of Commons, in the mother of all parliaments, and that is Mr. Speaker. Or Mrs. Speaker, when she's a female. That no MP has got the guts to criticise the Speaker. So the Speaker could do pretty much what the hell he likes, and no MP will say a damn thing. So we don't get justice, we don't get transparency, we don't get to find out exactly what the hell this guy was doing, spending £250,000 of our money in 2 years of jet-setting glamorously.
The spoils of Hoyle, or Hoyle spoiled, Kev.
Yeah. It's bad, though, isn't it? It's bad.
It is, in the sense that I cannot understand how there isn't, well, maybe there is, some sort of parliamentary ombudsman who can actually be independent of the sort of the conflict of interest that there clearly is between the MPs who want to speak, and he can say, no, you can't speak because you grasped me up to whatever, so you won't get to speak, like you're inferring here. Why isn't there some sort of process where, you know, there's an independent panel who actually can police this, Kevin? I don't get it.
There should be some kind of power. Something in the House that brings the Speaker into focus. You know, brings them to justice. You know, look. I mean, he made this speech yesterday to the Society of Editors, 150 of them, droning on about the importance of, taking the work of the House around the world. It's not important. There's a waste of money is what that's what that is. But, he made this speech and seems to feel that justifies this. Well, I don't think it does. I want to know what it is that the speaker does when he goes to a conference of speakers, the G7, and what do they talk about? Who can shout order loudest?
Exactly. It's ridiculous. I think what I can't understand, his constituents should almost have grounds for recalling him and just say, listen, you can't be representing us. If you're out there, do have your jollies with Mrs. H.
Well, I'm hearing Tarquin. Well, of course, he takes her along on some of his trips.
Yeah.
Took her to LA, I think. Took her to Gibraltar a couple of times. I'm not suggesting necessarily that Mrs. Hoyle, or should I say Lady Hoyle, didn't pay for herself and all that, but I'm not quite sure if he's working. Why does his wife go along? And when he went to Gibraltar, where he is the Chancellor of the University of Gibraltar, he took members of staff, his parliamentary staff with him so he could work. Well, he can't go to Gibraltar, the university, as the Chancellor and say that's official parliamentary business. So one hopes he paid for that himself. But why did we, the taxpayer, have to pay for him taking parliamentary staff? Maybe even his wife. I mean, this guy, there's so many questions that we deserve to have answered here.
We do.
But we cannot rely on our 650 representatives in Parliament because not a single one of them has got the backbone to take this issue up.
Keep it up, Kev.
I will do, Tarquin. Call tomorrow. I'll do a story on DEI. Sounds like I'll have to now. It's incumbent upon me so that Tarquin can sing his song. Here's a couple of messages. Let me read these out. This is from Paul in Fife. This net zero madness. Will David Lammy now resign from the government in protest of the Labour government's decision to support slavery to achieve our net zero goals? That's a great point because, of course, Ed Miliband is prepared to overlook slave labour in the process of producing solar panels in China because he wants the solar panels. He also is prepared to overlook that they're made from power stations fuelled by coal. Fossil fuels, very damaging to the environment. So, first of all, they're made with coal-fueled power stations, and secondly, it seems that there may be slave labour involved. But Ed, nothing matters apart from net zero. So that's a really good point. Let's see what we've got now. This is Stuart. Why can't the government get endless appeals to this is the question of how many appeals that these migrants, these asylum seekers, are allowed to make against decisions to have them deported. Seems like it's limitless, endless. You just keep appealing. This is Stuart. Why can't the government get endless appeals to overturn ridiculous judges' decisions allowing foreign criminals to stay? Surely the ECHR can be used to protect British victims. Well, it could be in theory. It could be in theory, I suppose. Before we go to break, we'll come back with some more calls. Let's play one more WhatsApp voice note. It's Jerry, again on this issue of the number of appeals that migrants are allowed against decisions to deport them, which seems to be endless, limitless. You can just keep appealing until you get the decision you want. Good stuff, isn't it? So this is Jerry on these appeals.
These illegals, the criminals, and their constant endless appeals. What we should do is put in a bit of legislation where they only have a certain amount of funds prescribed to them to be able to appeal. And once those funds are used, they can no longer appeal, plain and simple. That would be it. That's my idea.
I like that idea, Jerry. Thank you very much. Let's go to break, come back, more of your calls. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's definitely maybe time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning Oasis tickets at Wembley this summer.
How'd you fancy winning tickets to the hottest gig of the century? Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to bag yourself a pair of tickets to Oasis at Wembley this summer. Plus, we're giving away a whopping 10 grand and putting you up for the weekend in a London hotel. All you need to do is text the word prize to 83338 and you're in the draw. Alternatively, you can enter by post. Once again, all you need to do is text the word prize to 83338 or you can enter by post. Good luck.
18 plus UK excluding Northern Ireland. Enter by text for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on the 7th of April 2025. Or post your name and number to Oasis Competition, PO Box 3190. Colchester CO2 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of April 2025. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion.
No maybe about it. Definitely a great opportunity to go and see one of the concerts of the decade. Everybody wants to go and see Oasis. Now let's do a last WhatsApp voice note, shall we? This is Claire on fish and chips.
Evening, Kevin. I think this fish and chip story, although possibly true, is really a distraction from the Rachel Reeves Queen of Thieves backlash. And if we want to talk about our fish and chips, then with Starmer handing over our fishing rights, there will be little left in the way of cod and haddock for us. So now the Queen of Thieves' spring statement has drowned out the re-entry debacle into Europe too.
I sort of see myself as the co-star. This is very much the Claire show. We've got Georgina from London, a great caller as well. So Claire and Georgina, brilliant correspondents who send in excellent WhatsApp voice notes and make brilliant phone calls. Always good. Well, it's always good to hear from all of you, but some people stand out. You know what I mean. This is from Martin in Caversham. It's in Surrey, isn't it? I think. He says, re the pedo alcoholic we can't deport. A halfway house might be able to sponsor him for the highly successful Alan Carr method for the booze. I don't give a damn. I mean, okay, I don't give a crap whether he's drunk or not, whether or not he's an alcoholic, whether or not he gets cured. We should just kick him out of the country. Goes on to say taxi to Heathrow, and then Martin suggests Betty's never had a drink in his life. How has this been demonstrated in court? Maybe, you know, well, we don't really know, Martin, because we're not allowed to know his name. This is another mystery. Why not? I mean, I don't necessarily doubt that he's an alkie, but you know, I don't care. Send him back to Pakistan. We won't be able to get treatment for his booze problem. Oh, well, I'm going to lose a lot of sleep about that. Unbelievable. Bleeding heart claptrap. Right. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Jenny in Hampshire.
Oh, hello, Kevin.
Hi, Jenny.
Yeah, well, Madam was dishing out all her glory today in the House of Commons. I mean, nothing's ever mentioned. They never bring up their addiction to migrants, do they? The fact that the majority of people in this country go to work hard, and our taxes are being doshed out like it's nothing.
Yeah, exactly right.
For migrants and human rights lawyers, how much is it really costing to keep this lot that's coming across illegally, put them up, looking after them, giving them money, and for the human rights lawyers to keep coming backwards and forwards when they get told no, they can't stay. Oh yes, they can. Backwards and forwards to courts. That's costing us billions.
Let me ask you this, Jenny. Why do we take billions of pounds away from our own people, from pensioners, from farmers? A lot of people losing their welfare now. I mean, a lot of people deserve to lose their welfare, but a lot of deserving people are having their benefits taken away. Why are we taking billions? Or why is this government taking billions and billions of pounds away from our own people, but giving billions and billions of pounds to criminals who break into our country illegally? Why are we doing that?
This is where all our money is going.
I know.
This is why people, they have to cheat. I mean, I don't agree with all youngsters sitting on their backsides and not getting jobs. No, I don't believe in that at all. Years ago, if you didn't have a job, you didn't get paid. End of.
Okay.
But
it's the American way, Jenny. It's the American way. We should bring it in my view.
You can see why they sit back and say, well, why should I go to work, earn money, pay taxes for all these morons to keep coming in? And we can't stay, we can't stay, but lawyers are constantly being paid to cover the cost of that as well.
Jenny, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a basket case insanity. It really is. As I say, we're taking billions of pounds away from our own people who deserve it, but we are spending billions of pounds and giving billions of pounds to foreign criminals who break into our country illegally, and then we allow them to live here forever. If that's not mad, I don't know what is. Jenny, great call. Thank you very much. Please call me again. Jenny in Hampshire, making good sense. I think you will agree. Let's go to break. When we come back, a few more calls, and I will be welcoming into the studio the great Petri Hoskin, who will be taking you through from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. So you'll want to hear what she's got lined up for your entertainment. That next, stay tuned.
If Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves think that the mood of the British people is that they are prepared to see additional cuts to vital services for working people, additional hardship for poor pensioners, so Rachel Reeves can afford to send that tank to Ukraine, they are about to get the shock of their political lives.
Yeah.
We do have to confront Putin. We do have to support Ukraine. But I'm telling you, the British people, again, are not going to accept it.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much for your company tonight. It's been an excellent edition of the Political Asylum. And we'll be back tomorrow with more of the same, 7 p.m. Right here on Talk. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, of course, for an hour, it's Call Dr. Renee, GP, Dr. Renee Hunderkamp in the studio answering all your medical problems. We'll have Isabel Oakshott on at 7 to go through some of the big stories of the day. And I don't know what we're going to do at 9 o'clock. I'll have to work that out. But it'll be one hell of a show, I can guarantee you that. So I look forward to you joining me tomorrow night. Before we go back to the phones, I want to read this out. It's fairly long, but it's from Sharon, but I think it's a really good message. Sharon, if you're listening, thank you. It says, "Hi Kevin, our politicians have stripped our country bare and it is en route to condemn more and more people to poverty. The migrant crisis has to be stopped. No matter what they say, it is easy to do. This will put an end to the astronomical migrant bill and benefits bill, which can be put towards social care to look after our elderly. Then they should cancel the stupid, insane Chagos deal and put an end to free gear Keir et al. Establish a British Doge secretary and cancel Ed Miliband's net zero game. Support our farmers and bring back British manufacturing. That's what should be done." Brilliant, Sharon. I hereby appoint you Prime Minister. That's a really good message. Couldn't agree more with every single word of that. Stop spending money on foreigners, on illegal foreigners, and start spending it on the people who live here, British citizens, British residents. Billions and billions, like with £15 billion a year we spend on people who break into our country illegally. And we start giving them free stuff. It's ridiculous. 45 quid a week, free doctors, free dentists, free hotels, free food, free lawyers to fight their case to stay. Honestly, how mad is this country? Let's stop doing this. Sharon's right. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Trevor in Edinburgh. Hi, Trevor.
Hello, Kevin. Hello. I just wanted to make a couple of points about this budget that Rachel Reeves has dreamed up from Fantasyland. Number one, they were talking on TV earlier on. I was watching the recording here. Keir Starmer sat there laughing and sniggering all the way through the opposition speech. When Mel Stride stood up to give the response which the opposition does in a budget speech, Mr. Starmer was sitting there sniggering and laughing away like a schoolboy.
Well, they always do this. This is the sort of studied ritual of the House of Commons. You look bored and contemptuous when the opposition is talking.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say is, if the plan that Keir Starmer told people it was going to do, I mean, they're told so many lies, but I don't know where to start. But let me just say, they said they were going to build 1.5 billion homes by the Parliament, right? So I went and checked this way, different sites on the web, and they were bona fide. They were government websites. You know how much it would cost to build 1.5 million new homes? It would cost, this is not a joke, this is £250 a house. It was £300 billion.
Those would be cheap houses, wouldn't they?
They're saying, no, but I'm saying, even, let's say the houses would cost £250,000 each to build, which is realistic for that size of house, built from scratch. It would cost £300 billion. Now, Rachel Reeves clawed back £1.4 billion from the pensioners. She's going to claw back another £3 billion from the disabled and the elderly, second people with cancer.
She says she's going to, yeah.
Now, let's say she claws back £4 billion. Where are they getting this $300 billion for the building these houses that they've promised the British people they're going to build? Where's the $300 billion coming from? Given that they couldn't run a raffle.
It'll come from us, Trev. It'll be there'll be tax rises instead. They can't carry on with all this spending without charging us extra taxes. Taxes are going to go up. Sure as night follows day. Another broken promise from Keir's crew.
Yeah. Isn't it sickening, though, that people voted for Labour believing that they would be a real alternative and a real difference? They're better than...
Well, they were different, but not in a good way.
No, I know, and you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Trevor, good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Because she's been waiting, let's quickly talk to... all right, very quickly, Joe in Leicestershire. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how
very
are you
quick.
doing?
I've got Petri in the studio. So, what would you want to say?
This Pakistani paedophile.
Yeah.
Two things.
Yeah.
And just wondering, is he on PIP because he's alcoholic?
Oh, probably, almost certainly, and no doubt we were showering him with benefits. It's just a ridiculous situation. I'll tell you what, Joe, I've got to go because I've got Petri in the studio. Give me a call tomorrow, we'll have a proper chat. I'm sorry to cut you short. That's Joe in Leicestershire talking about the Pakistani paedophile who's allowed to stay. Petri, sorry.